surrounding areas will come in and help the North Shore Fire Department both at this scene and to sort of backfill their local fire departments. We're actually getting a better view here of what is happening inside the parking garage. As you can see, the firefighters and those working. Apologies for the shaky camera here. We're getting back set up after we had to move there for just a bit. But again, if you're familiar with this area, you know this is one of the entrances to the parking garage that you go in. If you go to the left from where we're looking, you would go over to the Qdoba and maybe go head out to where Trader Joe's is, and in the center is the ramp that goes upstairs to the other levels. And one of our producers had a chance to speak with an employee at the Five Guys, which is on the other side of this parking garage, and he told them that that is what they saw there. That was their understanding, that the second or third floor collapsed onto the first floor, and that there was active response, as you can see there right now. Now, what we don't know, again, is whether or not anybody is trapped inside this parking garage or maybe inside the vehicles that could have been under where this collapsed. In the pictures we've seen, when we've zoomed in, you can see a large amount of snow on the parking garage in the picture from what has collapsed. And generally, if you're familiar with parking garages, of course, they will, the top level specifically, they will move the snow into one specific area, a mound of snow, if you will. And we've obviously had a lot of snowstorms in the last couple weeks, and some heavy snow as well. So as we push in here and we get a better look at what the firefighters are doing, I'll ask if we can bring our Uba Ali back in. And what are you seeing on the scene there right now, Uba?
Tom, we got closer, as close as we can get right now. And earlier I said we didn't see any firefighters starting to dig at this pile of snow on the ground here of the Bayshore parking structure. Now firefighters have begun digging. I can confirm this. I can see there's several firefighters with the shovel in their hand picking away at this snow pile. Looks to be at least 10 or more firefighters working diligently, trying to remove the snow from the ground of the Bayshore parking structure. I'm going to see if my photographer can zoom in, just show you where that break happened on the second floor of that parking structure. You can see the rubble just beside and most likely underneath the snow. It looks like it's going to be a really long long cleanup operation as these firefighters begin digging. That's what I can confirm for you right now. Again, Bayshore parking structure has collapsed. The second floor, from what I can see, is the part of the ramp that has collapsed to the ground. Firefighters, again, working extremely hard to remove the snow. And like you mentioned earlier, we have had a lot of thick, heavy snow. This is going to be a long process as we begin to learn more information about what took place here earlier today.
Yeah, and over the issue is going to be not what's underneath this snow, but potentially what's underneath the cement that has collapsed from top to bottom there at the parking structure. Just to kind of set the scene, because it's hard for me to remember from my times there, is this a 3 or a 2-story parking garage? I'm just trying to get a better idea of what came down on top, because the snow would have been obviously on the uncovered top level of this garage.
Right. It looks to me, from my vantage point, Tom, it's the second floor of this parking structure. You've got the ground floor where you park, obviously covered. Then you go up to the second, and then there's a third part of this parking structure that's opened. Again, from what I can see, it looks to be the second part of the parking structure that has collapsed. I can confirm that. That's just what I can see from where I am. Again, if you're looking and just joining in, this is a parking structure collapse at Bayshore parking ramp right next to Kohl's, right next to Ulta. On the other side, you have Rocco's, you have Mattress Firm. More folks are now walking in with shovels to begin this cleanup. I mentioned earlier that we have not seen any victims being taken to the hospital. We have seen a lot of folks embracing, a few crying. We're really trying to figure out what's going on and hoping that there is nobody stuck under whatever this is, if the collapse, if there's a car, and hopefully no one was in a vehicle at the time of the collapse. Again, not a lot of information confirmed to us just yet. Tom?
Yeah, and Uba, that would obviously be the concern there, anybody that would be trapped. I also wonder if where you are standing, can you see, are there ambulances lined up, or is there any sort of a triage situation set up ready to take any potential victims out of here, should there be any?
I do not see any. I do see one North Shore ambulance out here. It doesn't seem like they're set up. There was a stretcher out here earlier. That stretcher has now been placed back into the ambulance, so it doesn't seem like they're in any rush here to take any victims out just yet. It looks like right now they're tending to the cement that has fallen alongside with the snow. If you're looking, you see several firefighters with a shovel in their hand getting to work.
Yeah, their main concern obviously is going to be whether or not anybody could be trapped underneath there, and of course life-saving operations that would go on. But they also have to worry about their own safety and the structural integrity of this building. Our camera's being moved back right now, as you can see, but this is giving us a better look at where we are right now. We're on the east side of this parking garage here at Bayshore Town Center. We would be in the parking lot, if you're familiar with the area, of Kohl's department store. And on the left, you can see the other places that are along this area, including Qdoba and Rocky Rococo Pizza. Now you're looking at an aerial map from Google Maps here, and you can see a better idea of where this is. This is obviously Bayshore Town Center, right off of Silver Spring. And as we zoom in here, we're looking at that parking garage from above, and you can see in this particular shot, which was taken some time ago, vehicles on that top above the parking garage. We don't know if there were any up there at this time when this collapse happened, but we certainly know there was a lot of snow on the roof, because that is shown in our pictures on the ground as we've seen where the collapse has happened. Firefighters are already beginning to use shovels to just get the snow off of that cement and then go from there. They are obviously at the moment checking in with people that might be in this area to find out if they knew anybody could have been inside the vehicles or in this parking garage when this collapse happened. This happened during the busy lunch hour there, and several restaurants and food locations are right in that building where people would conceivably park to go inside and grab a bite to eat during the lunch hour at Bayshore Town Center. Now again, this is on the east side of the parking garage, and you can see as we zoom in here, that white area in the middle, right above that white Honda SUV there, is the snow that was on the top level of the parking garage, which has now come down onto the levels below. We have not been told whether or not there are any people trapped or any vehicles trapped underneath, but as you can see, the firefighters are arriving on scene. They're evaluating the situation, and while we were on the air here just about 5 minutes ago, the Milwaukee Structural Collapse Team, it's a big 18-wheeler type vehicle, pulled up and was able to start letting its workers out, and they were starting to go towards the scene. Now what we're seeing here is a Bobcat type of vehicle. You see them often to be used in construction sites. They're a very small and agile type of tractor that can move dirt, or in this case, snow, very quickly. So they've got firefighters by hand using shovels to try and move some of this snow, but now they have got a Bobcat in, and they're using that to try and remove some of this snow. I don't know if that came out of that 18-wheeler that's there, but I can tell you this area has several different pieces of property under construction right now. The other side of Bayshore Town Center has a brand new Culver's, and there's other construction going on in that area. There's an apartment building, so it's conceivable it could have also come from one of those spaces to get over there quickly. But again, as we widen out, you can see they're blocking off this area. This is the parking lot that is outside of the parking garage there at Bayshore Town Center. Our Uba Ali is on scene. She's been gathering more information, and Uba, I understand you have somebody you can speak with right now.
Yes. Hey there, Tom. I'm joined by Cassandra, and Cassandra came here to shop with family and friends, and her car is under that rubble. Can you just kind of walk me through what happened?
I just parked there at 8 a.m. this morning. I actually had to go to work. I work across the street, and we're told to park there, and just wanted to avoid the snow, and it collapsed. So I got more snow than I bargained for, but...
have you been told, do you know if anyone is in vehicles?
I don't think anyone was in there. My car was empty, and then I think the car next to me was empty, so I think everybody's okay.
When you parked there this morning, how many vehicles were parked next to you?
I think there was only like 2 or 3, and then they came progressively throughout the day, so.
How are you feeling right now? There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed out, but it is what it is.
How long have you been coming here and parking at this structure?
Oh, I've worked there for like almost 2 years now, so.
And where do you work?
Right across the street, the pet apothecary. Yeah.
Just walk me through those very moments when did you hear a big boom?
We didn't hear anything. I got a phone call from the police that the structure had collapsed and that my car was damaged, and so I just came over. Had to talk to the police and stuff. So.
And right now, if you're joining us, I'm joined by Cassandra. She normally parks at this parking structure, has been for the past 2 years, really. Can you see your car from where we are?
It's underneath all the snow.
Underneath all that cement and snow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you? I mean, what are the next steps here for you?
I don't know yet. I live pretty close, so I don't really have to worry about having a car, thankfully. But, yeah, I have my mom. So.
I think the great news here is that you weren't hurt. You're here
Yeah.
To talk to us about what happened. I think, thankfully, really grateful that you're okay, and really hoping that no one is under there. Have you heard from police at all if there is anything going on, or is there an active rescue happening?
I don't think so. They haven't said anything. They're trying to, because they don't know anything yet, so they don't want to make claims and stuff. So.
That was Cassandra. Her car is one of the vehicles that is buried under all that snow and all that cement. And you parked on the first floor. Is that correct, Cassandra?
Yeah, I parked on the ramp.
The ramp. Got it. And it's 3 floor. It's a 3-floor parking structure.
Yeah, I think so. Or 2? No, 3. You're right. Yeah, I just can't drive.
Wow. So sorry. So sorry you have to deal with this. There you have it, Tom. You just heard it from, an individual here that, unfortunately, her car, it might be a complete loss here. Thankfully, she's not hurt. Thankfully, she'll be able to go home tonight and reassess. Thank you so much for your time. Tom?
Uba, before you let Cassandra go, I just wonder if you can ask her a question while she's walking away there. I just wondered if, when the police called her, are they trying to, get an idea of who is possibly in the vehicles or what they asked her? I guess I'm trying to gauge the urgency of the police department when they called her.
Cassandra, we want to know, when the police called you, was it just informing you what happened, or asking you if anyone was in that vehicle, your vehicle at the time?
The phone call was just informing me that something had happened to my car and that I needed to come talk to the police. And then I gave all my information, and they were like, "Is anybody else in there?" And I was like, "No, just empty and trash."
Well, thank you so much. There, you heard it there, Tom. Thankfully, no one in her vehicle. We're hoping no one else is in any vehicle under all that rubble and snow.
That is absolutely the case, Uba, but it's kind of a little bit reassuring to hear from her that they were just checking on her car and making sure nobody else was inside it. Of course, that must have been a vehicle that they could see. They were able to run the plates and get information on who owned it. Let's recap right now while Uba is out there gathering more information on the scene. Let's tell you what we know right now. This call came in the noon hour of a parking garage collapse near Trader Joe's at Bayshore Town Center. You're looking here live at the east side of this parking garage, and it appears the top floor that had some snow on it collapsed down onto the floors below. What we know at this hour is that the fire department from both North Shore, Milwaukee Fire, and others are on scene, and they are working on moving some of the snow that is on the ground right there that came down with that collapse. The structural collapse unit from Milwaukee Fire is also on scene there. We have seen firefighters using hand shovels to remove some of the snow, and in the most recent minutes here, we've seen a Bobcat type of construction equipment in there moving the snow. None of the fire departments has told us whether or not they believe anybody is trapped inside. Of course, that is going to go on what they are finding out from the people at the scene, like Cassandra, who we just talked to, whose car was under there, parked there this morning when she went to work. And they are, of course, also using rescue equipment to see if there is any sounds being made by any potential people that could have been underneath this. Now, when we're looking at these pictures, and this is just from my recollection of being in this parking garage, it appears to me that some of this that may have collapsed may have been the ramp itself, which goes from one level to another, which that would be better news because there wouldn't be vehicles parked underneath that. But obviously there are some vehicles trapped inside here because that's what Cassandra told us, that the fire department, police department called her to ask whether or not there was anybody else in her vehicle, and she was obviously safe across the street. This is somewhere where she parks on a regular basis, working across the street there at Bayshore Town Center. Again, Bayshore Town Center here in Glendale, structural collapse of the parking garage right now, and we have fire department on scene. and they are currently digging through the snow that's on the ground and some of the rubble that is there to see what's going on there. I noticed here in studio that meteorologist Brendan Johnson is joining me. And Brendan, I want to know about the weight of the snow here, because we're seeing, you can see it as we zoom in right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the piles of that snow. Here's the difference between, some folks in Sheboygan, Fond du Lac counties farther to the north had that regular snow, very fine, powdery, it's a little bit drier, it's easier to move. Closer to Milwaukee, which would include Glendale as well, a little bit more of a wetter snow. It is much more dense. When you've got the lighter snow, we've got air pockets in between it. The snow that we've had, the sleet as well, it has more water content, Tom. So we actually have more water filling up that space. It's a little bit more dense. Now look at the piles that you got there. You pile that all on, it creates one area of all that weight. Of course, not a structural engineer, so we're gonna obviously get more details as things go forward in time here, but when you put that all in one area, I mean, we were talking yesterday, we had a story done about how much weight, on a 30-foot tree, you got ice on it, almost 3,500 pounds. So you're adding the weight of a car onto it. So imagine you've got all this sleet piled into one area. There's no air in that sleet. It's all just heavy water content. That's why so many folks have been struggling trying to move this snow across the area today, cleaning up their driveways and sidewalks. Got that piled in one area. It is pretty heavy.
And you can see, they're picking it up with the shovels right here and using that construction equipment to try and remove the snow. But as you can see, that's a very large area of snow. It doesn't seem to just be one big pile.
Yeah, absolutely. So, even if it, could be spread over an area, could be in a collection. I'm sure, they're going to be taking a close look at this in the hours and days to come. But, those firefighters are really getting at this snow that is much more heavy than a typical, winter storm here in Wisconsin. It's that sleet, it's that snow, it's that freezing rain as well. All that kind of mixing together, it just adds to that density, that weight.
All right, meteorologist Brendan Johnson joining us right now, talking about the weight of the snow. Brendan, thanks so much for giving us that insight. Uba Ali is our reporter on the scene. She arrived there a little bit ago. She's been talking with people there. Uba, I understand you have somebody else that can give us a little more insight on what happened there.
Yeah, I'm joined by Morgan right now, and Morgan, you work in this area. When did you find out something had happened?
We were at work, all on our break, eating our lunch, and one of our coworkers ran down to the basement and said, "The parking structure collapsed. Like, if you park there, you guys have to go and look and see if your car's okay." So we were all freaking out. We ran over here and just noticed it was the second floor, but my car's in there. Thankfully right now it's not collapsed on, but they don't know when it's going to be deemed safe to go in and get our cars or what's going to happen. So we're all a little uneasy.
Yeah. Thankfully, your car, you can see it from where we are right now. Do you normally park in that same spot, or would you have parked where that collapsed, all that snow and cement fell?
If it's a sunny day, I'll park outside the structure. But since it was cold and snowy and rainy, I decided to park in the structure, and I'll usually park in that spot. But I know some of my other coworkers definitely park in that same spot every single day. So I don't know. It's just, I mean, sometimes I think about parking on the second structure. It's just kind of where I decide to go for the day. So it's nerve-wracking that could have been my car, but I'm just hoping that it doesn't collapse further or there's more damage, but I'm hoping there weren't any people in there too. I mean, that's scary for sure, so it's just kind of like a waiting game.
Right. Yeah. And again, Morgan said that her car is there. We can see it. It hasn't been, it's okay. But the question is, when you came out here, they haven't allowed you to go in there yet. They're still really worried about the structure. Yeah. Have you heard when you'll be able to get your vehicle?
They said it could be hours. It could possibly be tomorrow. They don't really know. So I'm not really sure when we'll be able to go in and get the cars, but it's really unsure at this moment. So I don't know. It could be without a car for a few days. So
I'm going to have my photographer pan back out this way. And your car is... there's some firefighters around your car right now, Morgan, I can see. Again, firefighters are working diligently trying to remove all the snow, all the cement that's with it, before they allow anybody to get their car. We heard from Morgan, who thankfully her car is fine, no damage, but it'll be hours before she's able to get her car and go home. Thank you so much, Morgan, for your time.
Uba Ali, thank you for talking with Morgan out there, and Cassandra, two people that had their cars parked in that garage. and are dealing with that collapse right now. Susan Kim joining me on set here. TMJ4 News continued coverage here of a collapse at the parking structure at Bayshore Mall. Again, you're looking from the east side of that parking structure in the parking lot of the Kohl's. At this point, we know that there are several fire department agencies on scene, from North Shore Fire, which would be the local fire department there, and Milwaukee Fire Structural Collapse Unit also on scene right now, working to remove the snow that came down from apparently the roof of the parking garage, causing that collapse, it appears. And they are working to find out if there is potentially anybody underneath that snow. We know that there are potentially vehicles there, talking to some of the witnesses on the scene, but we're working to find out if there are any people under that snow as well, and the cement of the garage, as firefighters work to clear that and also try to figure out the structural integrity of the rest of the parking structure while they are in there working.
And this is a live look right now at that parking structure, and it's a pretty dramatic scene. Our photojournalist who is there with our Uba Ali, if you could just zoom in so we can share with our audience if you are just joining us. This picture is pretty dramatic as we see firefighters there actually digging through snow to make sure that nobody is there, any other issues that might arise from that, and they're doing that as they keep their own safety in mind. They have to be careful for each other, digging through that snow, and it looks as if there's several feet of snow that has piled up as a result of the recent storm that we got.
Yeah, and as we continue to look at this picture, that's what you're seeing mostly there. It's kind of dark underneath the shadows of the parking garage there, but the majority of the folks you're looking at there are firefighters from various different agencies there. They have been removing some of the hand-by snow. We've also seen them use some light construction equipment to try and move that snow. Their biggest concern right now, of course, is going to be whether or not there's any people trapped underneath where this collapse happened. We talked to Cassandra, who had her car in there. She told us that the police department there in Glendale called her. She works across the street, to let her know that this collapse had happened. They asked if anybody was possibly in her vehicle, and she said no, her car was empty. It was there in the parking garage while she was at work. But that's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to assess whether or not this is an active rescue situation or whether or not this is a cleanup and recovery of what has happened to the parking garage there. But again, there's other vehicles in this parking garage in different parts. They don't know the structural integrity of it. So a lot of folks that are in that area are going to be stuck without their vehicle at least for a while. And a lot of other small restaurants are in this part of Bayshore Town Center, including Cadoba, Mexican Eats, and the Rocky Rococo Pizza and Pasta. Those are all right there. And there's a mattress firm, I believe, there in that area as well. So those are the businesses that would utilize this parking structure.
And you have probably heard Broadcastify. It's radio sound between police and firefighters that we in the media share sometimes. And I'm going to share a quote here. It says, we are going to start slowly hand digging from unknown safe area on the recommendation of the engineer here. Some of the conversation that is going on between the North Shore Fire and other law enforcement who are helping in this search and recovery. This is a whole way to the third floor that just cracked at the third floor. The third floor fell down on the second floor. This is some of the conversation again from Broadcastify. So this is the situation that you are seeing right now. Firefighters and they're on scene, first responders just trying to get a handle on the situation after the report of a partial collapse of a parking structure at Bayshore Town Center. Very busy area, Tom, as you had indicated, with all of those businesses just right around the mall area there. And then listening to some of the people who have their cars parked there, you can't help but feel for them, right? As they're concerned about their car, and then obviously when they can get their mode of transportation back.
Concerned about their car, but also concerned, you know, maybe they had gone in there to move their car at lunch, and this could have happened while people are inside. And again, that is the question we're waiting to hear from local law enforcement and fire authorities in that area, is whether or not they are working this scene as an active rescue situation. Of course, the firefighters and the police departments there have had their hands full right now. Their first job, of course, is to rescue and save any life of any possible people trapped in this collapse, and then they'll get us some information as that time comes along. I can guarantee you that our assignment desk and producers in the newsroom are working to gather more information as soon as they can. But again, you can clearly see here that snow there, which was at one point on the third level of this parking garage and has come down 2 levels to now the first ground level of the Bayshore parking garage. On the east side is where we're looking at it from. This would be on the south side of Bayshore Town Center, right along Silver Spring Drive.
Okay, so we just got confirmation. Our bosses are talking to us in our ears, so just give me a second here. We have confirmation. Chad, if you could repeat that, we have confirmation that one part of the roof has collapsed? Correct, okay. From the very top. So we do have confirmation now that one part of the roof has collapsed in this parking structure. This is at Bayshore Town Center. If you are just joining us, you are looking at a live picture of that parking garage where you see firefighters off in the distance there. They were digging through the snow for a short time. It appears, at least for now, they are not doing that. A lot of people, they're standing around assessing the situation. We do have our Uba Ali, who has been able to talk to a couple folks who parked their cars in that parking structure, and they found out from law enforcement, actually. They had not heard anything, but they heard from law enforcement that there had been a collapse at the garage and their cars were impacted. So they certainly are standing by to learn more about that. Tom, we got first word about this parking structure collapse about 12:30 or so?
Yeah, somewhere in the noon hour. Yeah, I think we heard about it around 12:30. I'm guessing the call came in, within the minutes before that. When talking with Uba out on the scene, and I don't want to look too deep into this, but the fact that there are not ambulances lined up, which we know in a triage situation like this, I have been to several major triage events like this in our city, there would be ambulances lined up if they thought they had multiple victims to take out of there. Now, some of that might just be that they don't know what they're about to find when they get in there. That's why they're checking with people whose cars are parked there. But at this point, they appear obviously to be focusing on this one particular section where we are seeing them remove snow by hand, or at least we did, and using the Bobcat construction equipment to go in there and remove snow. Now, I should say that I haven't seen that happen in the last 5 minutes or so. It seems to have stopped. Again, I don't know if that's because they've been able to confirm that this is now just going to be checking the structural rigidity of the building and cleaning up, or what. We're obviously waiting for some more word from the local fire departments in that area.
Yeah, we often find this in a situation where we are waiting for information. We certainly don't want to get in the way of the job that the fire department has to do there, or police, law enforcement. We want to let them do their jobs, and then we are trying to gather information here as well. Our Uba Ali is on scene, and so she's been able to talk to some people who have confirmed to her that their cars are in that parking structure. We have confirmed that there is a partial roof collapse in that garage that you see there in front of you. But the activity, I would agree with you, Tom, it looks as if it certainly has calmed down a little bit right now as compared to maybe even 10, 15 minutes ago.
There's a lot of pictures and chatter swirling around on social media about what has happened in here, but it does allow me to get a little bit better of a look at some of the collapse that has happened, a closer look than we can get from our camera right here, because presumably before this became a scene with firefighters and police department officers, they were able to get closer to the scene. But it is certainly the top floor, which is the second floor ramp, appears to have come down on top of the floors below. And I can see in a photo I'm looking at, and I apologize that I can't show this to you on the air in the setup we have right now, there are at least vehicles underneath this, and we were guessing that that was the case. It appeared to be the case. We were told by some witnesses there that their vehicles were inside, but I can actually see some vehicles that are partially crushed by this collapse on pictures that are circulating right now on social media.
Yeah, I'm looking at a photo as well that we do have permission to use, and it is it looks like a Volkswagen type of car, and the left half of the vehicle is smashed, covered with snow right now, but it's an example of some of the vehicles that were damaged in this partial roof collapse at the parking structure at Bayshore Town Center. As we continue to take this live look at firefighters there on scene, assessing the situation, they are no longer digging through the snow, at least from the picture that we have right now.
And you can see the snow that we're seeing piled up there. We had a meteorologist, Brendan Johnson, on here just a few moments ago talking about this snow and how heavy it is. You know that we've had a few snowstorms here in recent weeks that have accumulated some inches of snow. Yesterday's storm was more of the sleet and ice type of accumulation. There wasn't a large number of it, but as Brendan was saying, the density of that, the water density in that is so much heavier that it creates a lot of weight. And in parking garages, if you go to the top level of a parking garage, you'll see that they will often pile the snow in one particular space, a few spots. We've all seen it in parking lots, and that is a lot of concentrated weight in one space. Now we're taking that, I guess, educated guess because we see the snow, which is down on top of these other levels of the parking garage right now, and that seems to be the area of concern. The other areas of the parking garage seem to be intact and not having any issues right now.
I talked about the Broadcastify audio, which is conversations between law enforcement or first responders, that type of thing, in situations. And I do want to play one little clip for you just because it might give us a little bit more insight.
The third floor, it just cracked at the third floor. The third floor fell down, took out the second floor. There is some stuff on the second floor hanging over that looks like it could also fall away onto one vehicle. We're not seeing anything in the vehicle that makes us think there's somebody in there, but can't quite tell. Okay, I copy.
Again, that was Broadcastify sound. And here is one of the pictures that we were talking about, Tom, in terms of photos illustrating what some people are going to see when they get to their cars finally.
Yeah, and you can hear in the voice of the firefighters there that obviously they are checking to make sure that is the case, that nobody is trapped underneath any of this, but that recording specifically seemed relatively calm. They are working though, because this is in an area centralized on that one east side of the parking garage. As we come back to another live picture right now, you can see where they are centering their efforts on trying to figure out whether or not anything is underneath this snow and cement, because again, it's in this one particular part of the parking garage. And as you saw in that picture that we showed you, some people were able to get a lot closer at times, and you can see that there are some vehicles that are crushed in there. The good news would be if there were no people in those cars, a car can be replaced. Anybody that would be in there, we of course want to get them out as soon as possible. And these firefighters, and especially the very specialized firefighters from the structural collapse team, that is what they train to do. I'm guessing there's probably dogs there as well, that they will be checking all this out. But again, they're calling the people whose maybe license plates they can read and getting that information and calling them nearby to say, hey, who's in your car? Is anybody in your car? We see that it's parked in this parking garage where there's been a collapse.
Yeah, our Uba Ali is on the scene right now, and she was able to talk to one young lady who said that police came to her office across the street and told her that her car was parked in that parking structure and that it had partially collapsed. So they are able to contact some people based on what they're seeing there on location as we continue to monitor this live picture that you're seeing. Again, this is Bayshore Town Center, and you can see firefighters there on scene, that huge pile of snow, and then behind it you see that cement piece kind of at an angle, and that is part of what we are talking about here when we're referring to this partial parking structure collapse, as firefighters continue to monitor the situation there. We are going to stay live with this. If you are just joining us, there are reports of this parking structure that collapsed about 12:30 or so is when we found out. We have not had any updates from North Shore Fire or Glendale Police at this point. We are standing by though for any information that we can get. We have been able to confirm that there was a partial roof collapse in this garage that happened. We're going on a little more than an hour now from when we first learned about what happened there.
And you can see right now, again, this area of concern, the east side of the parking garage, where the firefighters were initially using shovels to dig out some of the snow and then some construction equipment. That seems to have stopped. Just judging by some pictures and the familiarity I have with this garage, and to be honest, I frequently shop there at the Trader Joe's in that area and go to the Qdoba. I can tell you that there's ramps in the middle of the garage that would go up and down. The good news to that would be there wouldn't be many vehicles underneath those, where if this is partially where the ramp collapsed, where you would go up and down to get in and out of that parking garage. This is a map that you're looking at right now. The bottom part of your screen would be Silver Spring Drive right there, and as we zoom out, you can see to the left Port Washington, and then the interstate, which would be right next to it, and the exit there. This is the roof of the parking garage, and you see that center spot right there where there's no vehicles. It's sort of the ramp that goes up and down. From some of the other pictures I've seen, I think that is the area that collapsed. And yeah, to the right of your screen right there in the center, there's sort of that place where there are no vehicles parked, and it looks like you kind of go underneath to get back into the garage to the second floor. That is where it appears from some of the other photos I've seen online that the collapse actually happened.
And again, this is an old shot of the parking garage, so we don't know how many cars were on the rooftop there, but it does illustrate what Tom was talking about in the area of the parking garage that we do believe collapsed. And maybe snow had something to do with it, we don't know, but you can certainly imagine with the storm that we had yesterday, and you can see the snow that is piled up in front of the firefighters there that you can see in this live picture of the parking garage. There certainly is a lot of it, and if you've been out to shovel snow today, you know how heavy it is. The snowfall we had was filled with ice as well, so a pretty hefty storm that we all just came out of yesterday in the last 24 hours or so.
And you know, you mentioned the old photo there, and I don't know how sometimes Google images are very old, sometimes they're not that old. But one thing that strikes me is this parking garage isn't that old. I mean, Bayshore was redeveloped about less than 20 years ago, I think, and to be what it is today. And as you know, the other side of Bayshore Town Center is being completely redeveloped right now, and more parking structures and buildings and places are going up on the other side of Bayshore Town Center. But this parking garage itself is not necessarily that old, at least during the redevelopment years of Bayshore Town Center, when it turned from the old mall that it was sort of into the outdoor mall in the last 15 to 20 years or so. Again, a live picture right here as we wait for information from the local fire department, which would be North Shore Fire, which would be the main department in that area. And as we mentioned again, Milwaukee Fire and other agencies also on scene. This is a mutual aid type situation where they would help out not only here, but also in the other fire stations that are throughout the area that might need some backfilling.
As we continue with this live look right now, we are able to zoom in on some of the firefighters who are there on scene, and it certainly does not look like it's a hectic situation. About 20 minutes ago, firefighters were digging through that big snow pile that you see there using, look like their hands, maybe a shovel. That is not happening any longer. And then there's that little bobcat you see in the middle of your screen that was moving around about a half hour or so, that is now staying put. So we don't know what that means.
Yeah, it means that they're not frantically digging at this point, which is good news. Uba Ali is on the scene. She has been. She's talked with some folks that had their cars in that garage. She's been gathering more information for us. Uba, what can you tell us right now?
So you guys are almost
You can hear she's sort of speaking with the folks right now.
Uba, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay, what are you able to tell us?
So as of right now, like we mentioned, firefighters are still working hard to remove the snow and the rubble. I believe you could see several cars. On the other side, you can see bumpers of vehicles. But I want to bring in Cece, and Cece's a student here at Bryan and Stratton. And Cece, when you got here, I mean, you almost walked into this mess as it was happening. Can you just kind of walk me through what happened?
I was on my phone listening to music. We have midterms today, so I was trying to rush into class, and the police and the fire department stopped me because I really wasn't paying attention, and they didn't have the police tape up yet. So I almost walked into it, unfortunately, just from, you know, not paying attention to my surroundings. And there's just like snow everywhere, and it's just chaotic and crazy.
Do you normally park in this parking structure at LCC?
Every Thursday, we're supposed to park either on the second floor or the third floor. I called my doctor, who's our teacher. He says he's stuck inside. He can't, there's nobody in or out of the building, is what the police said. So they're trapped inside, we're trapped outside. I was just waiting around because I'm not really sure what to do, because, you know, if you miss midterms, that's a big no-no. So. And
thankfully you didn't drive today.
I did, but luckily I didn't park in there. I parked right outside over here, so.
Wow, just split-second decision, just decided to park there.
Yep.
How grateful are you to know that you're not?
I'm a little in shock. I'm kind of worried because, one, I know I don't have the adequate car insurance to cover this. I don't know how that's going to get figured out.
Yeah. Wow. I'm So, I mean, I'm so glad that you're okay. I'm glad that your car is also not damaged. I mean, have you heard from teachers? Are you guys just going to stick around here until, I'm assuming it's because of they're trying to make sure that the structure is stable to let people in right now.
Yeah, the fire department said nobody in or out and the building wasn't safe. When I called the doctor and my classmates, they said the whole building shook when it happened. So all of them felt it. So I guess they were a little bit shaken up, but everybody says they're okay.
Can you kind of explain what those messages were like? I mean, what did it feel like? What did it sound like when that happened?
They said the whole building shook and it was just like a big loud, I want to say like a crash or like a thud. Because I called like, I can't get in. The police are telling me no. And they're like, yeah, we were here when it happened. And I'm like, well, I'm outside when it happened. They're inside when it happened.
Hey, Uba.
Thank you so much for your time,
Can you ask Cece before she walks away? I just want to clarify something because she mentioned that people were trapped. When she says trapped, she means inside the building, right? And can't get into the parking lot, not in the garage.
Yeah, when you said people were trapped, you don't mean in the...
No, they're trapped in the building. Police and fire department said nobody in or out.
Got it, okay. All
And
right.
Uba
you
also...
heard it there, Tom. No one trapped. Go ahead, Susan.
No, Uba, I was also going to ask Cece, can you give us some, explain where Bryant and Stratton is compared to the garage so we have an idea of where people are not allowed to leave? Because she mentioned her colleagues and friends were not allowed to leave the building.
Can you kind of explain to me where Bryant and Stratton is from where we are now? And I'll have my photographer pan, and then you can follow me here. Just kind of show me where you are walking and where your school is and people can't get in.
I was actually walking right this way, trying to go through like the middle of the parking structure like an idiot because like I said, I wasn't paying attention. But Bryant and Stratton is right, if you can see where the stairwell is, it's that third door right there.
So right off the parking structure.
Yep, that whole third floor is pretty much ours.
Got it. And students normally park on the third or second floor.
All of our medical assistant and our nursing students are in there right now.
How many people could you say are in there right now?
Probably about 30, 40.
Everyone's okay inside?
Yeah, shaken up, but they said they're okay, just kind of startled.
Thank you so much once again, Cece. Again, more people are starting to funnel out. Like you've heard throughout this newscast, this is a big business complex. There's a lot of folks walking out, trying to figure out what's going on. Cece is a student. Bryant and Stratton is here. Students normally park on the second and third floor. So she's really grateful that she's okay. And I think we're going to continue to learn more as more people continue to come out and try to figure out what's going on. Is their car in there? Is everything going to be okay? We're still waiting to hear from officials here. I'm not sure if our fire chief is on the scene just yet, but we'll continue to bring you the latest. It looks like, from my vantage point, Tom and Susan, firefighters have stopped hand shoveling as of right now. It looks like they're really trying to figure out what their next steps are here in terms of cleanup.
All right, Uba, thank you. We're going to continue to show our viewers here this live picture as we stay on top of this breaking news out at Bayshore Town Center, where there has been a partial collapse of the parking garage there. I would hope Cece's professor gives her a pass or a good grade or however, a makeup date. She's worried about her midterms.
And she talked about that third floor being mostly Bryant and Stratton College. If you've been in the area, you've seen that. And so that's why, there might be more vehicles parked here in this parking garage than you might think for a regular weekday, just with a few restaurants there to eat. But nevertheless, there are some vehicles still inside that, and folks are now stuck inside the building that can't get out. I'm sure they can go out other exits of the building. They're just trying to keep people away from this parking garage, where they are working to determine, again, whether or not anyone is trapped underneath any of this. There's been no word on that this afternoon, and what the structural integrity is of the rest of this parking garage. I can probably guarantee you, if your car is in there, even if it's in a place that is not within the collapse zone, it's going to be there for a bit, because they're not going to let anybody in until they make sure this is safe. And how to get the cars from the roof, because it appears the ramp may have been what collapsed, I'm not sure what they'll do there, but they're going to be working on that now in the hours and days ahead.
Yeah, our Uba Ali, who you just heard from on scene, actually talked to a young lady who worked across the street, who said that she was told that her car may be stuck there at least today, maybe even into tomorrow. as a result of this collapse that you're seeing. And we made mention of those people who go to Bryant and Stratton who are in their offices there and cannot leave, at least not yet, as firefighters on scene try to assess the safety of the situation, but they're being told not to leave quite yet. But Cece was saying that she was walking and her friends at the school said that the building just shook and there was some sort of loud thud sound as she was approaching the parking garage. So it's definitely something that got people's attention around that area as the collapse occurred. It happened about 12:30 by our best estimate at this point. So we are approaching about an hour and a half as firefighters and first responders are there on scene assessing the situation and just figuring out what the next best move is.
What the next best move is. And again, we've seen, you know, at points when we were looking at this about 30 minutes ago, the firefighters were using those hand shovels and frantically digging to get that snow off. They wanted to make sure there was nothing underneath it. At some point, either their information changed or they got to the bottom and found that there was nothing trapped under at least where they're looking at this moment. But that is, of course, the main concern when you have something like this. There goes that Bobcat construction vehicle again. It has been moving around. They were using this to move snow at one point as well. That appears to be leaving the area that has the issue. So we'll hopefully take that as a good sign. Again, as we wait for information from North Shore Fire Department or Milwaukee Fire Department, any of the mutual aid agencies that are on scene right now as they continue to evaluate the collapse, evaluate the possibility of what might be underneath, and evaluate, as Susan was saying, what their next steps are here to try and shore it up or potentially get any vehicles out of there that might be able to drive out on their own.
And we do have several crews working this story for us. Our Sarah McGrew says that she just spoke to a woman who told her that based on security cameras from police, they don't believe anyone was in that part of the building at the time of the collapse, which would explain what we're seeing here in terms of our live pictures and the change from digging through that snow with their hands and not doing that anymore. Although we're still waiting for information, we just want to share bits and pieces that our reporters out in the field are sharing with us. You see all that snow there, and of course we all went through the last 24 hours together. Our meteorologist Brendan Johnson joins us live now to talk more about the impact of snow on structures. Brendan.
Yeah, Susan and Tom, a lot of folks across southeastern Wisconsin dealing with that more heavy, wet snow, and that is a result of the sleet that fell just the other day. So you see those piles there that have kind of toppled on top of that concrete. What wound up happening yesterday is that a lot of this precipitation that you see there on the ground started off as rain, believe it or not, several thousand feet above our heads, and eventually froze as it came down closer to the surface. That means that it is more so made up of water compared to your average, fluffy, lighter type of snowfall, which is not necessarily something we saw here in southeastern Wisconsin just the other day. So normally when you get that fluffy snow that kind of falls right out of your hand, you've got air pockets in there, and that makes it less dense rather. So it makes it much more easier to move. It is much lighter. The sleet we had yesterday, instead of that air in between each little dendrite, if you will, it's those little particles of snow, we've got more water, and that's what makes it much more dense. So in terms of weight on this, we've kind of run some of the numbers. Usually we kind of go off of 12 inches. You always want to kind of look at a cubic foot. You definitely have carloads of weight when you talk about 12 inches of snowfall. In this case, got the closest report, just over 3 inches of sleet in Shorewood. That is the closest report we got from yesterday. That would take things down a bit, but if you got a wet snow per square foot, you're talking about anywhere between about 3 to 3.5 pounds per square foot. You multiply that over, let's say, 1,500 square feet, you're talking more than 5,000 pounds just because of all that snow and sleet that is kind of congealed together. course, you don't know the square footage of this particular parking garage, but the basis here, the bottom line is that this snow that you see there is going to be much more heavy than the typical light fluffy snow that you get in a typical winter weather system here in southeastern Wisconsin. So the things that that folks are kind of shoveling today, and those firefighters you saw a bit earlier trying to shovel, it is a lot heavier than it normally would be for, you know, winter weather situation, that fluffy light snow that we get, guys.
All right, meteorologist Brendan Johnson breaking down the weight of that heavy snow there in Glendale. The closest report to Shorewood, you said how many inches yesterday?
Just 3.3 inches was the report.
But very heavy, heavy wet snow and ice sleet that came down there. We continue to have more reporters on the scene. Our Jenna Ray is live there at Bayshore. Jenna, what can you tell us where you are?
Tom and Susan, we're on the other side of the structure, giving you guys kind of a different perspective of exactly what's happening here at the Bayshore parking garage. I'm going to step out so you guys can see. So this is a side angle from where you were seeing before. You can see a mound of snow on top of that concrete that fell down from the parking structure. You can also see several cars that are underneath there. We have talked with people whose cars have been under that rubble. They're not allowed to go get their cars, and people whose cars aren't even in the rubble aren't allowed to go under the parking structure either. For now, we still don't know if there were people inside the structure or inside their cars when this collapsed. Again, the call came in just after 12:30, and TMJ4 crews were around the scene just about after 12:45. So we were here pretty quickly. We've seen this unfold. There are dozens of people standing by just to learn more about what their car situation is, when they can go back in, as well as shoppers just at Bayshore out shopping in the middle of the day. We're learning more minute by minute, and we'll let you guys know as soon as we have more information.
Jenna, can you tell us where you are exactly? Are you in front of Trader Joe's?
Sure. So we're actually right down the road from Trader Joe's and NQW, but we're kind of on the inside of the parking garage that backs up to the building structure here. So you can see again behind me. So Uba, who you guys saw earlier, we're on the east side. We are just around the corner from her, and you can see the side of this parking structure.
And Jenna, you made mention of all the people who are gathered near you. Can we get a look at just the crowd that has gathered? I'm curious as to just how many people think their cars might be in that garage still.
Susan, we still don't know. From what we can see right now, there's at least a few cars underneath that rubble. Again, there's concrete with snow on top of it, so it's kind of hard to tell. As you guys were talking about earlier, it looks like that this is the ramp of the parking garage. It's in the middle of the structure with the ramp going up to the second level, and it looks like the second and possibly third level collapsed down to the bottom floor.
Yeah, that's one of these garages that has the ramp in the middle. I'm familiar with it a little bit. And so the good news to that is there's not as many vehicles parked on the ramps generally. You park closer to the elevator or the stairs where you're going to get out and make your way to where you need to go. We're looking at this picture. Jenna, thank you so much for what you had there. We're looking at this picture right now, and this is of the roof of the parking garage right now today. I'm sorry, producers in the back, if you can help me out here. Okay, you can see the hole right in the center here, and that's what we were looking at before, that it appeared to be the center of the parking garage. Again, the ramp that takes you from the first to second to third level where they had piled the snow, it appears, and that is what we're looking at right here, which is now a gaping hole.
That's in the center of your screen from this live picture that we're seeing from the rooftop of that parking structure at Bayshore Town Center. And as you look around it, it doesn't look as if there are many vehicles. I see one vehicle. I don't know if there's another one in that far corner there, but at least it looks as if from this picture there weren't that many vehicles parked on the top level of the Bayshore Town Center garage there when this occurred today. But again, you see that gaping hole there in the middle of your screen.
And one of the things you don't see on this picture of the roof, at least in this shot, is a pile of snow. And our presumption is that this was the pile of snow that came down with that collapse there. Generally, in parking garages, they'll pile it in one spot. Larger parking garages, sometimes they send it down a chute off the side of the building into a parking spot or something below on the ground, so they can just move it off of the roof for this exact reason, because snow does tend to weigh a lot. If you have a heavy winter season of snow, it's obviously going to be a lot of weight in one particular area. So yes, a lot of times, especially in larger parking garages, they'll send it down a chute over the side of the building in a controlled way to make sure it is somewhere where it's not, the weight is on the ground and not on some of the structure here.
And we continue to share with you these live images that we have from different parts of the parking garage at Bayshore Town Center. As we continue our live coverage, just want to reset you here if you're just joining us live here on TMJ4 News. I'm Susan Kim here with my colleague Tom Durian, and we are covering breaking news from Bayshore Town Center, where there has been a partial roof collapse of the garage there. Many of you may know that area. You've shopped there, so you know about the garage. This is on Port Washington Road. Is the area that is of concern. We have heard from several people who have said that they were told their cars were in the garage and have been impacted by this partial roof collapse. It occurred about 12:30 or so. We are still waiting for official information from North Shore Fire and other members of law enforcement who are involved in the investigation of just what has happened here. But as far as we could tell, we started getting reports at about 12:30 this afternoon, the busy lunchtime hour, that there had been a partial roof collapse over there in the garage at Bayshore Town Center.
And one of the things we're seeing now that we hadn't seen a little bit earlier this morning is we're seeing these firefighters now making their way into the collapse zone, if you will, to take a look at the situation there. Obviously, they've got hard hats on, most of them there, and are prepared for anything else that may fall. They're going to be checking in on the structural rigidity of the rest of the building. Apologize for the picture breakup there. As you can imagine, there are a lot of cellular service signals being used in the area right now, which is causing a little bit of that. You know, we're looking at some other live pictures here of what they're working on. I see a drone. I can't tell you whether or not that's a drone for the fire department to take a look, or a drone from somebody with their personal drone or a media drone. I can tell you there is a helicopter in the air, so it's unlikely that it's anybody following the rules. I can tell you that much, unless it's the police department or the fire department. They often use drones to go into spaces that they can't see from below to take a look at where they are looking at the collapse, to see just, you know, what they can't see with the naked eye.
And, you know, as we show you this live picture of the garage, this has had a ripple effect on businesses around the garage. We did talk to a student there with Bryant and Stratton, who was concerned about getting to class on time because she has tests. And she was told that folks at her school, there's 30 to 40 people who have been told they can't leave right now because of this ongoing investigation. She reported that the building shook. There was some sort of loud thud sound in that area at the time of the collapse. We're looking right now on the left-hand side of your screen. You're looking at an aerial view of the area that we're talking about, with the parking structure right there on North Port Washington Road in Silver Spring. But, you know, if you know that area, of course, there's shopping to be done. There's restaurants in that area, and then there's Bryant and Stratton College in that location as well, where students are being told that they cannot leave right now because of this ongoing situation.
We talked to Cassandra earlier. She had her car parked in this garage. She works across the street, but often parks over here, she says, because especially in the winter, to keep her car away from the snow. And she was called by presumably the Glendale Police Department, asking her, you know, was anybody in her car, what the situation was with her vehicle, because it is now stuck inside this parking garage that has at least partially collapsed. So it appears that the fire department, police department on scene were making their way through the vehicles, maybe the ones they could see with license plates, to find out who the registered owners are and whether or not they may have been anywhere near or inside those vehicles. And again, over the last 45 minutes or so, we've seen them kind of tamper down on their efforts to move that snow. Now we see more of the firefighters moving in from our other shots and taking a look at what is underneath there, seemingly to get a better idea of what the next steps are.
And as our reporters continue to be on the scene and gather information, our Sarah McGrew just wanted to pass this on. She was able to speak to a woman who told her that police told her that based on security cameras, they do not believe anyone was in that part of the building at the time of the collapse. Yeah, that's great news. And that would also match the pictures that we're seeing and the developments over the last hour and a half or so as we've been monitoring this live situation here. Firefighters, when we first got there, had started to dig through the snow with their hands. And there was a bobcat on location as well. Tom, when you first went on the air this afternoon with this information when we broke in, and now it looks as if they're just kind of assessing the situation and have gone into the parking structure to get a closer look.
Yeah, this is the east side of the parking structure where we're looking at right now. Our Jenna Ray is on, I believe, the south side of the structure near the Cadoba. There's a little bit of a breezeway between the parking garage and that building that has the first floor is retail and the second and third floors are Bryant and Stratton College. So Jenna, what are you seeing where you are right now? It looked like firefighters were kind of going in behind you, taking a look at what was happening.
That's exactly what's happening, Tom. And just a few seconds ago, we actually had a security officer come over here and remove and ask the media crews to move. We're just doing this live shot very quickly and then getting out of the way so you guys can see what's going on. But they're telling us that this is unsafe to be around, that this structure right now, for us to be in this little corridor here on the south side, it isn't safe for us to be here. Right now, you can still see that pile of snow. Just a few seconds ago, we had some firefighters and what looked like some inspection crews walking through some of the rubble, trying to get a scope of exactly the extent of the damage that's done here today. Now, I did ask that security guard, they're asking us to move, saying that this structure is not safe and is not sound. However, she said that they're not planning to evacuate any of the businesses or any people who are in the businesses yet. Now, it is important to note that this parking structure is attached to the businesses. It's attached to these buildings, so we'll keep you guys updated if they plan to evacuate more people, but for right now, I think they're just having people hang tight and make sure that they're not super close to that parking structure as they continue to investigate and inspect what's going on.
Jenna, is it windy? I know we have a long delay here, but I'm seeing that sign go back and forth, and I'm wondering if it's windy out there. I want to just make sure the building's not moving on its own.
The building is not moving on its own, but I will say when we got here, I noticed the same thing, Tom. We had some of these signs moving, but where the structure collapsed, those signs are moving significantly more. So you can definitely tell that there is some airflow, abnormal airflow coming through the garage, making these signs sway because of this open part that we have here in the middle where you can see those safety crews and inspectors looking at right now.
All right, our Jenna Ray reporting live for us from Bayshore Town Center at the garage there on the south side. Jenna, we want her to be able to move to a safe place. They've been told to move, so we shall do so.
Yeah, she mentioned, though, the building, there is a breezeway between the two, but there's also an elevator shaft in the middle, if I remember correctly, that gets you from the third floor down to the first, and that, I think, is what's attached to the building where the Bryant and Stratton College is, and obviously the other businesses there, which are Cadoba, the mattress firm, and the Rocky Rococo, I think, is on there. And then at the far end of this would be where many people are familiar with the Trader Joe's, which is at the bottom, the southwest corner of that building, which many people are familiar with. But a lot of the people that go to Trader Joe's, and this is an aerial look at the picture from Google Maps, would park in that outside exterior parking lot if they were going to the shopping center there.
I'm wondering if we have that rooftop shot available to us right now so we can share with our viewers the area that is missing from the rooftop of that parking garage, because we just showed you that Google image where everything is intact, and then now we are able to get a hold of a rooftop image that shows a big gap, a big hole in the middle of the rooftop of that parking structure. I am told our control room is working on getting that shot for us. So we're just going to stand by, and here it is. You can see it on the left-hand side of your screen. That big gaping hole in the middle was not there in the Google image that we shared with you just a few moments ago. So that's the big difference in the situation that firefighters there on scene are trying to assess, and that partial collapse of the rooftop there has caused some damage to vehicles in the lower levels of that parking structure. We know at least 2 people have told us that their cars are in that garage, and they have been told that they would not be able to get their car. One woman told us she would be able to get it today, maybe not until tomorrow. We have also seen images, Tom, of a damaged vehicle where you can see the driver's side of the vehicle is collapsed from what has happened above it. some serious damage to that vehicle to the point where you cannot even, the person would not be able to even drive it out were they to have access.
Yeah. Looks like they're starting to use more of the heavy construction equipment right now to move some of the snow and debris out of their way as, again, they continue to look at what might be underneath. The good news we've heard from what we've observed and what we've heard from our Sarah McGrew, who is a reporter on scene, that it appears the security camera footage leads rescuers to believe that there may not have been people underneath this collapse zone as it may be. However, they are of course going to make sure that is the case by moving some of that snow and debris out of the way and checking what might be underneath. But again, we're going on now almost 2 hours since this collapse happened. We know the call came in somewhere between 12 and 12:30 this afternoon in the busy lunch hour there at Bayshore Town Center. Where this collapse happened. People on the scene there telling our reporters it sounded like a large boom. So it was certainly heard inside the businesses that are right there along the parking garage as people were working and in some cases in classes at Bryant and Stratton. But the good news again that we're hearing at the moment is that it appears security camera footage, according to our Sarah McGrew, leads rescuers to believe that nobody was in there, but they of course going to check that out.
And the Bryant and Stratton College, which is right there near the parking structure, some 30 to 40 people. At last word, we're told they can't leave yet because of this situation that's going on here. Obviously, the fire department wants to make sure that they have fully assessed the situation and that it is safe for others to move around as they get in there and check on the structural integrity of the parking garage itself. We have confirmed, and we can see from pictures, that there was a partial collapse from the rooftop, the top level of that parking structure, and that has led to the falling snow that you see there in the middle of your screen.
Now, I've been checking while we've been talking to see if North Shore Fire or Bayshore has put anything on social media to update the public on what's going on. They have not at this time. We are waiting to have some sort of briefing, we hope, from law enforcement and fire officials on scene once they're able to make sure that they are clear of doing any type of life-saving operations there. Waiting for more information for folks in the area and for them to tell us exactly what they do know happened here. But now this is the most action we've seen in the last 45 minutes or so. They're using that Bobcat and other construction equipment there to start moving the snow out of this pile that is from the 3rd floor now on the 1st floor, and in between would be the 2nd floor of not only cement but potential vehicles as well.
And we do have several crews on the scene as we show you this live picture of the activity that is occurring, the scooping of the snow. The Bobcat, or shoveling snow like many
Doing
of you
something
probably
like a lot of
did.
people are
Yes.
doing, yeah, right now.
And here on the left-hand side of your screen, this is the photo that I was trying to describe to everybody here. We are able to share it with you now. You can see the driver's side of that vehicle just completely damaged, either by falling snow or whatever debris may have fallen as a result of this partial roof collapse. Zooming in here now so you can get a better look at what has happened to that vehicle. We still don't know how many vehicles were inside the garage at the time of the collapse, or how many others were seriously damaged. We did hear from 2 people who were told that their cars were in the garage at the time of this roof collapse and they cannot get to it at this point. I've been told that they cannot go there yet. We also know that a student at Bryant and Stratton was walking towards the garage to go to class. Her words were she wasn't really paying attention to what was going on, and police stopped her to tell her the situation. And she talked with friends and other students who were inside the building and was told that they cannot leave. She thought maybe 30 to 40 people, that they heard a loud thud and that the building itself shook.
It does appear, and I can hear a little bit through our natural sound, that we are awaiting some sort of briefing from fire officials.
Yes.
They're getting ready on our other camera shot here to talk. Here, let's go to that right now.
One leaving. No scared.
Okay, they are getting prepared right now to give us a briefing, trying to get all the television stations, cameras in one spot, and microphones ready to go. And we'll,
If you give us 2 minutes, we'll get a rate.
Okay, so
we got the 2-minute warning.
the 2-minute warning there. I think that's our Steve Shammer is on scene right there, asking for what we call a rate, which is where you put the microphones all in one place together, and they're getting that set up there. The TV crew's working together so they can get that set up, and we can get more information on what happened here. This would be our first official briefing since we know this call came in sometime in the 12 o'clock hour this afternoon, the collapse of the parking garage at Bayshore Town Center, where we know there are vehicles underneath the rubble, but we're waiting to hear if firefighters are potentially looking for any people. That does not appear to be the case at this time, but again, no official word has come from North Shore Fire or Glendale Police Department since it's all began a couple hours ago.
And as we've been able to share with you some of the photos, we do know that there was a partial roof collapse of that garage that you see behind our crew there. That's our Rob Barris, the photojournalist, getting set up for this news conference. And you also saw Steve Shamras, who is there on location as well. So we have several crews on scene as we continue to monitor the situation here. On the left-hand side of your screen, that's some of the video that was taken earlier this afternoon, shortly after our crews arrived, where firefighters were, it appeared they were using their hands to try to shovel that snow away.
All right, it appears they're stepping to the microphones right now.
City of Glendale, Alderwoman Tamika Vukovic from the 1st District. This is her aldermanic district. This is a coordinated response with the North Shore Fire and Rescue and the Milwaukee Fire Department. At this point, any inquiries in the future, you'll want to talk with the North Shore Fire Department as well as with Bayshore. I'm going to turn it over to the chief from the North Shore Fire Department as well as the assistant chief from the Milwaukee Fire Department to give a report. Good afternoon, my name is Robert, common spelling, last name W-H-I-T-A-K-E-R, Whitaker. I'm the fire chief with North Shore Fire Rescue. About 12:15 today, we were dispatched to what's commonly called the Silver Spring parking garage at Bayshore Mall. That's the building directly behind us for a report that the part of the parking structure had collapsed. Our initial response to that type of incident does bring a large number of resources from not only our department, but the City of Milwaukee Fire Department and their structural collapse team, or heavy urban rescue team. Assistant Chief Dwayne Smoots is with us also today. Companies on scene found that a portion of the structure had collapsed from the 3rd floor down in a pancake type collapse. There were 2 cars known to be in the collapse area. The cars were it was unknown if they were occupied and unknown if there's any pedestrian traffic. It's a large pedestrian traffic area with the various stores and shopping center here. We have now worked through watching video of security video of that area. Bayshore Mall has a large video presence throughout the property.
All right, apologize for that. Apparently our feed has frozen from the news conference at the Bayshore Town Center parking structure, but we do know that there was a pancake type collapse of the parking garage. As we take this live view now here, we're just waiting for that feed to continue. This was from the fire chief of the North Shore Fire Department. It does not appear that anybody was hurt, though.
Yeah, what seems interesting, he said they knew that there were 2 vehicles underneath in this pancake type of situation, and we've seen some of the pictures of those vehicles. They watched security video to make sure that there was no pedestrian or people in there. Let's go back to that press conference.
Working with the property owner's engineering firm and the manufacturer of some of the spans of concrete that are there on the engineering side of all this to make sure that it is indeed not in danger of any further collapse. And they have people on site now, and I'm assuming they'll have people on site for the next several hours. There are cars in that parking garage that are unaffected by the actual collapse, but are unable to exit because this is the sole ramp outside of this to get out of the garage. Bayshore Mall is working with their security and the Glendale Police on the process to recover people to at least get to their cars to recover items that they may want to get out, but we do not expect they'll be able to remove those cars yet today. So with that, I would take any questions.
How about maybe tell us about structural engineering, about regulations, how often these types of structures should be checked?
I am not familiar with that type of...
Do you know who he is?
Boy, I would say that's probably going to be, the building inspector was here, but I'm not familiar if that's in their realm of responsibility.
You talked about the stability of the
remaining structure here. You do have people working underneath it right now. How confident are you that that's safe for them to be doing?
Yeah, we have, before we did that, after we have verified we didn't have a life safety issue, we are much more confident moving them in there, that we've conferred with the engineers and they're confident that it's a safe space to work. It's not something that we would want general pedestrian traffic in, but enough that we're willing to take that risk to get in there to actually make sure we don't have any life safety issues.
How long before pedestrian traffic can resume and people can get their cars that are stuck here?
Months, potentially.
Months, potentially?
Yeah, it's going to be a while. I mean, that is the ramp down to get out.
Yeah.
So, and literally from the third floor down, it's a wide open hole.
So, Chief, is it, what you're telling us then is that's not just shards of concrete, but the actual ramp is damaged?
The actual ramp, the third floor is in the first floor right now.
So it's not as easy as just moving those second and third floors so they can drive down?
I mean, I guess if they got an engineer to say that's safe, they maybe could do that, but that's beyond mine.
How many cars are right here who are being held or they being let out? I know I was speaking with some students who said that their friends were in class, that they were being held in and not evacuated from the building. Are they allowed to leave yet?
Yeah, I'm not aware, unless the property had put or the school had done something to hold their students. We did not ask for anything to happen to hold people into the building. I don't know why yet, but it appears snow would be some likely impact to the collapse.
I mean, there's more snow that's there than anywhere else. I mean, the concentration of snow, fair to say.
I think it's a fair statement.
Do you know if snow has been piled up in that area, like cloud and
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not aware of that. I have not personally seen that video.
How many cars would you say do have been affected, but how many cars total in this structure?
I don't have a good estimate off the top of my head. We can get that for you, but I would be guessing if I told you.
That video be made public?
That's going to be property of Bayshore Mall, so that would be something they'd have to have for you.
Can we talk to you for just a minute, just about, I mean, this is obviously an important property here in Glendale. I mean, what does this mean to the community to have this happen, and does it raise concerns about other structures here on the property?
Well, I mean, I think anytime this happens, we've certainly seen this around the Milwaukee area before, right, where there have been incidents like this. It certainly does raise concerns. But, you know, our experience with the redevelopment of Bayshore and the huge expansion that's taking place on the north and east side, you know, is you know, they're getting regularly inspected. As a matter of fact, the Glendale building inspector was here for a series of inspections on the apartments that are being built, so he walked over to see what was going on here. So, you know, we're regularly working with the folks at Bayshore. So, I mean, I'm confident that, you know, we'll continue to have a strong relationship with Bayshore. We may have a limited amount of parking here on the southwest side of the property for a while, but there's certainly, I certainly don't have any concerns about other structural problems on the property. I was parked here yesterday when I went to Trader Joe's. Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we certainly dodged a bullet on this one. We certainly did.
How old is this structure?
This would have been built in 2005 and 6. Bayshore reopened with the redevelopment in 2000.
Okay,
I don't.
so we're losing that feed there.
I'd have
so
to talk
we'll
with
go
my
ahead and,
city planner
wrap
to
this
find
up
that.
and let you know what we know at this hour.
So the city does inspections. Yes, but there is an engineer for Bayshore, and I would ask you to refer any questions about engineering directly to Bayshore because they hire their own engineers.
Mayor, the chief couldn't address this. Maybe you can, since the inspector is your employee. What was his assessment of what he saw when he came here?
I didn't get a full assessment from him, other than he came and walked around and looked at the property, and you know, he felt confident enough that, you know, he could go back over to continue his inspection of the apartments.
So he left and he moved on.
Yeah.
Generally, those guys, those inspectors are they're not engineers, so they are, from a legal perspective, have the ability to restrict access to things. They're not necessarily the guy that's or the person that's gonna come and do engineering access.
Do you think this is a case where you need an engineer or inspector to come in, since Bayshore is kind of engineering their own property here? Do you need to have your own better eyes on this than Bayshore's people and just trusting their word for it?
So there are a series of inspections that take place. It's not just Bayshore's engineers that sign off on their own work. I mean, there are state inspectors as well. Yeah.
Chief, I got a question. There are a lot of parking garages, not only here, but across the area.
all got hit by the same amount of snow. Advice to anyone who's in charge of one of those today? Yeah, so we did, the police department working with us did do a visual check of the other parking garages on this property, just so we had an idea of whether or not there was any sort of risk. I would clarify my statement that we're not positive snow is the cause of the collapse, but we likely think it's involved. And so, yeah, I mean, yesterday's snow was heavier than most snow. I mean, I went out and snowblowed and plowed my driveway twice yesterday and this morning. I got a good workout, and it was probably some of the heaviest snow I've dealt with in a while. And you can see just walking around, you have a lot of water, so heavier the snow, more weight, that gives you a risk. So piling snow on a property is probably, especially that's elevated, not a good idea.
We had a couple of people, Chief, tell us about some crumbling concrete inside, some regular parkers here you'll hear often throughout the week. What did you see inside as you're assessing whether it's safe for your crews to operate?
So I haven't personally been in there. We had members of our team in there. They did not see anything that led them to believe to be concerned.
Can this be repaired?
That would be a question that I would leave to an engineer.
Yeah. When did the city last
So the city does not do the inspections of the garages. We have other outside inspectors that do those. So. I don't. I have to check with my city planner.
Generally, inspections of buildings, like a store, those are done, like a fire inspection, that's done annually. The parking garages, because they're not occupied spaces, they don't fall in that space, so I'm not familiar with who would be responsible for that.
Mayor, can I just ask you, when you first heard about this happening, I mean, what were your first thoughts? What were your fears? How are you feeling now with what seems to have happened here?
Obviously, I was concerned that there might have been a loss of life. I'm very happy to hear from the fire and rescue folks that they're confident that there aren't any people under there. So that was my first concern. I actually was on my way to leave to take my wife to the airport. She drove herself and paid to park, so because I felt it was more important to be here, obviously.
So our intention, we will put out a press release with any more details, something in writing for all you. Send it to your news desks probably in the next 2 hours. And we'll be here about an hour at least, just to we want to get eyes on what's underneath this pile. But at this point, we're fairly confident there's no one in that space.
And ultimately, you said it could be upwards of a month before people can get their cars out of here.
Yeah, I think that depending on what the engineers can come up with, the ramp that you physically drive down is the space that's impacted. So that's the one way in and out of this garage.
Chief, what's the technique here? There's folks there. We see the bobcats. We see firefighters with hand shovels. What is the technique to use?
So for now, they're doing the hand shovels we used earlier. We wanted to, until we could verify occupancy. It's a little less. If you have someone in there, you don't want to be picking it up with a bobcat if you don't have to. Now they're just coming up with a game plan to actually move that snow out and probably pile it up here with the front end loaders, and then we'll watch as they go and hopefully get a visual on the cars and can come back and tell you guys later that no one's in there. All right, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Yep.
And you've been watching a live news conference with North Shore Fire Chief Robert Whitaker updating everybody the good news. They're confident nobody is caught in any of the rubble associated to that roof collapse. His words were, "We verified we don't have a life safety issue here." However, they do have a big mess, a partial roof collapse of the parking garage at Bayshore Town Center.
Yeah, they have a big mess, and the several cars that are in there, the fire chief said it could take months to get those out once they figure out a way to move them, because the ramp that goes from floor to floor is what collapsed here. Mayor Brian Kennedy of the city of Glendale, where this parking structure sits, said we dodged a bullet on this one, making sure that no life was lost here is their biggest concern, and it appears at this hour that is the case. We'll continue to follow this story for you on air and online. TMJ4 News at 4 with Susan Kim and Steve Shamraz will be on as scheduled today. You can see that on air and on all of our streaming platforms. It is 2:30 and we now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
They did say that they had video of the collapse. You can imagine, we've mentioned it, many of our anchors have as well, talking about all the security camera video that is in this area, whether it's a corner of the stores or the parking garages themselves. They did review that footage to help them assess whether people were inside, but it also gave them an idea of what happened in the first place. That video, property of Bayshore Mall, so we don't know